Ashwin?
Hey,
Hi,
it's
Alex.
yeah, I can hear you.
All right. My video on? Hello?
Hi, Alex. We can hear you.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, Alex.
Hear anything?
Looks like your mic is not right. Yeah, Alex, I can hear you. I can see you.
Oh, there, now I've noticed. It switched my mic and sound. So now I think it should be coming through the microphone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
So here is the structure, Alex. I would need 3 to 4 minutes to introduce, and then I'll hand it over to you. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Approximately how much time will you take? And then Ashwin can go with the custom fit intro. And we also have one more invitee, guest from Freshworks team, and he will take 7 to 8 minutes to explain, and then Q&A session.
Okay, so introduction, presentation, 7 to 8 minutes from Freshworks, and then Q&A.
In between 7 to 8 minutes for Ashwin about
Right, but
custom fit
after my presentation.
after your presentation. Yes.
Okay, sounds good. The presentation, it depends on how much I ramble, but should be 25 to 30 minutes. I do have a hard stop after an hour, though.
Sure.
But yeah, all that sounds good. And it looks like I can just share screen via sharing options. Should I test it out quick?
Yeah, I can just have a quick test.
All right, you guys can see this?
Yes.
Ooh. I had a panic moment. I've done this presentation once before, but it was a while back at A/B Testing Summit. And I had the presentation on my HubSpot computer, so I had to like remake it. And I was like, oh no. But actually it's good because, obviously I didn't want HubSpot branding, so I probably would have had to anyway.
Makes
Updated a bunch of
That's
slides
great.
too for the modern day. How many people signed up for the webinar?
Hello.
These are almost 110.
So basically,
Nice.
here it's 110, and from the LinkedIn, it's almost 180. So it's almost 280 kind of the people.
Nice. Very cool. I think at Workato right now we're doing a lot of foundational stuff. So we're doing like an analytics audit and kind of revamping our prioritization and all that stuff. But afterwards, I'm going to try out the free trial of Custom Fit and see if we can start doing some personalization with that.
Sure. I'm
Should
happy
give
to
it a
help you.
spin over the next couple of weeks. Should be. It's a huge desire initiative at Workato, so I'm hoping to get started on that. I feel like it's such a big initiative to get like teams, bought in and understanding personalization and all that too. But
Makes
it'll
sense.
definitely be useful to try out your tool.
Good. Hey, you guys can hear me?
Yes,
Hmm.
yes, Ashwin.
Okay, fine. Actually, I was thinking that my audio is not reaching out. Perfect. Yeah, Alex, once actually you guys start it out, I can even get you our team so that any help which you need, they can, without much bandwidth from your side, they can help you out during the trial session.
Oh yeah, that'd be amazing. Yeah, we're at the stage where our VP is super interested in personalization, but wants us to kind of prove things out. And I mean, we need data in place first. Like our analytics are all kind of like messy, but that would be really helpful.
Great. And also, Ashwini has shared the live links, like on the YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and also the website thing. I also shared with the Freshworks team. So yeah, they can also stream out this thing to their audience.
Oh, okay, cool. So this will be live even outside of the gated stuff?
Yes, yes, yes. Let's try to
Okay.
reach out to the max people. So it's always a win-win for everyone.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
Any idea, Ashwini? Presenters from Freshworks, when are they joining?
Yeah, I had a discussion over the WhatsApp. He replied back. I think if Nanda is not available, I have also shared the link with Sriram. Uh,
Hey, I'm just going to be back in 1 minute.
yeah, sure. Ashwin, this is live, right? Hello.
Yes, yes, correct.
Hello.
Hey,
Should I start?
I'm ready.
Okay. Ashwin, are we ready?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I'm starting the recording. Hello, everyone. Namaste. This is Ashwini, and you are joining us to one more exciting episode of WebFit webinar series brought to you by CustomFit.ai. As you all know, our today's guest is a product growth and experimentation expert as well as co-founder of Omniscient Digital, a premium content marketing agency. Let me also tell you some of his personal interests and hobbies. He enjoys skiing, composing and experiencing music, reading and writing, and language learning. He lives in Austin, that is Texas, with his dog Biscuit. Everybody, let's welcome Alex Bucket. Thank you, Alex, for joining us here, and we are excited to learn more about CRO, how this works as an operating system. Welcome, Alex, and thank you so much for joining us here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me, and I'm excited to give this presentation. So I'm just
Thank
going to
you.
share screen here if we're ready for that.
Uh, okay, and before that, let me just explain some core points what we are going to cover today. First is
Mhm.
embedding best CRO practices within a company's functions. Second is CRO strategies for data-driven decision making. Third is ensuring growth through the right infrastructure for data-driven decisions. With these learnings from this webinar, registrants are also going to get two more benefits. First is startup founders attending the session can gain credits up to $10,000 on essential products through the Freshworks for Startup program. Secondly, in addition to that, registrants will also receive an exclusive free webinar personalization uh, templates from CustomFit AI. These templates are useful for both beginners and experienced marketers at website personalization to help them get started. So guys, please stay tuned. Before moving ahead with our topic, let me quickly explain you about CustomFit AI. It helps B2B companies to convert website traffic into quality leads by dynamically changing website content and CTAs by based on user personas and past behaviors. It's a no-code platform for marketers to dynamically create hyper-personalized experiences to lift conversions. Our co-founder and CEO, Ashwin Kumar, will give you a quick introduction about CustomFit AI after the Q&A session, like after the presentation. So let's start our event. Optimization is an operating system, not a tactic. Over to you, Alex.
All right. Let's dive in. So today, like was mentioned, I'll be talking about how conversion rate optimization is an operating system, not a tactic or a list of tactics or even a list of strategies. This is something that's definitional in mindset, but it has very practical assumptions, practical implementations for how you build your conversion rate optimization program. So again, just a little bit of my background. It was already mentioned, but I'm working at Workato as the senior experimentation manager, and then I also run a content marketing agency. Of course, the former is the persona by which I'm going to be talking to you today as the head of experimentation. So let's dive in here. When you think about conversion rate optimization, or when you Google conversion rate optimization, you come up with CRO tips. A lot of bloggers are writing these listicles. You've got 7 user-centric CRO best practices from 25 experts, 12 ways to boost conversions. And I love the one at the bottom, 30 plus proven conversion rate optimization tips, which means there's evidence, which means they're almost certainly going to work for you, right? Or 100 CRO growth tips from CRO experts. Huge list of things you can apply to your website immediately. Or if you switch it up, you can say CRO tactics. There's 7 uncommon conversion rate optimization tactics, 3, 5, tons of lists, tons of different like tactics, tons of things you can implement right away. If we dive into a couple of these listicles, here's what they actually give in terms of advice. So this one is, it says use high quality images and video on your product pages, which I think in generality is actually very good advice, right? Like who could argue that higher quality images and possibly video could increase conversion rates as opposed to lower quality? But there's some subjectivity there. What is high quality? Is it simply the quality that matters? Is it the angle? Is it the size of the image? Like there's all kinds of nuance there. And then maybe video doesn't actually work. Maybe people don't actually watch the videos. So as a general sense of advice, this is great, but it doesn't actually help you apply much in terms of your actual, e-commerce website in this case. But, the same could be applied for SaaS websites. Or another tip on this list, offer free shipping. Of course, if I see free shipping, that's amazing because I save costs, right? Like the value proposition is much more in my favor. If I see that something is lowered by that, whatever, $7, $10, whatever shipping usually is. However, this is not simply a website design decision. This is something that factors into your logistics, your unit economics, and your operations as a whole. It's something that you can't necessarily just say, we're going to cut that shipping cost and see what happens. You can use a CRO program to see if this is actually beneficial to your business. But as blanket advice, it's not necessarily useful because maybe that doesn't actually work for your unit economics. Maybe your margins aren't that great and you can't actually offer free shipping. So it's just very general advice. And then maybe you want to go in and say, all right, tactics, tips, all right, those things are superficial. What about strategies? Strategy is a hard word. That's something they study in business schools. If you get your MBA, that's, it's all about strategy. So we've got 5 conversion rate optimization strategies. One of which, this strategy, is influence and persuade users using social proof and FOMO. Now, first off, this is not a strategy. This is a tactic. This is something you can apply to your website to reach your goals, but it's not necessarily something strategic. So we've got a definitional error here. And then even so, it's like FOMO may or may not work out. Fear of missing out, something that says, hey, this will be gone, buy now, otherwise you might not get it. That's something that could work in certain circumstances, but might not work in others. Maybe it actually backfires and causes lower conversion rates. So it's a good idea, but it's not necessarily something that's going to make or break your business, let alone your CRO program. So here are the lessons that I pull. And you got to take number 1 with a grain of salt because I run a content marketing agency and I obviously blog myself and have written tons of blog posts for CXL. But in general, don't trust bloggers, right? Like you're going to have to figure this stuff out for yourself. My best way to learn about conversion rate optimization is to join communities and talk to people who are doing this firsthand, because in a lot of cases, what you're getting with these lists and these articles is somebody who is researching from other sources and snowballing kind of, half-truths that aren't actually useful to your business context. Number 2 is that people really misunderstand what tactics, strategies, operating systems, etc. are. And number 3, growth or CRO or experimentation. I think all these things are essentially doing the same thing, by the way. It just depends on what business you work at, what industry, and what part of the product, whether it's website or product related. I think that these things should be neither tactics nor strategy. It should instead be an operating system, and that's what we're going to cover today. What is an operating system, and what does that look like in your business? But first, just a little diatribe real quick, if you'll humor me, on strategy versus tactics. Strategy is the overarching set of plans or set of goals, and the tactics are the specific actions or steps you take to undertake to accomplish your strategy. So, for example, I run a content marketing agency. There's many, many ways we could get clients. We could do scaled out outbound sales. We could wine and dine people. We could run paid ads. We could, essentially do a whole inbound play where we're just doing content marketing like HubSpot or Intercom or something. But one potential strategy could be, all right, I'm going to rely and lean in on my personal brand. So that would basically mean getting in front of as many audiences as possible and speaking potentially at conferences like this one here pictured, speaking at webinars like this one. But the tactics are the specific things that pave that road. Essentially under the umbrella of here, I'm going to build my personal brand in order to parlay that into clients. But the specific things are the tactics. So that's just a little illustration so we can get that out of the way. Now, an operating system in technical terms is the software that supports a computer's basic functions, scheduling tasks, executing applications, and controlling peripheries. Now, in the CRO context, I'm using that a little more metaphorically as something that essentially enables and sets quality control for all of the experimentation and data-driven decision-making at a company. So in my view, this argument around what CRO is, what it looks like is actually much less like a well-trained vigilante, CRO ninja, somebody who's got all these hacks and persuasion tactics in their head and can just run into any given website and optimize it, with back of the hand knowledge. Unless, of course, you have a really cute superhero, a really cute vigilante like this one, in which case it might work. But rather instead, it looks much more like infrastructure. It looks like the pipes and the sewers and the roads, all of the buildings, the things that enable cars to get to the places they want to go, allows energy to be produced in a city, essentially like the underlying infrastructure that enables these data-driven decisions throughout the company, and not just centered on the CRO team or on especially like a certain CRO specialist or individual who's supposed to be the expert in all these things. Now, this idea is not completely original. I actually took the basis for this from an article that was written on the whole.io blog. And they talked about growth engineering and the rise of essentially growth operations. So the point they made was that growth is really not marketing. Growth is operations. So it's not actually just solely a marketing-related function, nor essentially is it a product-related function. It's actually something that sits kind of underlying all these different programs, or rather it should be. This was written, of course, by my friend Ed Fry, this handsome British man, when he was at Hull.io running growth there. And he follows up and says, is growth about marketing, or is it about enabling marketing, and actually beyond marketing? And in that second paragraph, he says his observation is that growth should enable marketing, but not only that, product, sales, and other teams across the organization. And it should sit rather in an operational role supporting multiple teams across the company, and not just your sole function with your sole goals. This is actually a pretty huge shift in terms of how people think about CRO, because they're typically thinking about it as that list of tactics. Add some social proof here, reduce distraction here, and suddenly you've got this magic process where you can increase conversion rates and apply essentially your experience to produce more ROI. But I like to redefine this. So I look at CRO as a method that is used to make better business decisions in an online environment and deliver better experiences to visitors, customers, users, etc. It could be anything you're optimizing for, depending on your business context. Visually, the way I look at this is businesses of all sorts have tons and tons of data coming in. You've got qualitative data, you've got sales transcripts, you've got competitive information, you've got keyword data from your SEO team, and you've got qualitative stuff that you're doing on your own, such as Hotjar polls or Google Analytics data. So essentially all of this research and feedback pipes through the CRO team, and they output decisions, better decisions, quantitatively backed decisions, and hopefully better experiences for the audience that result in better conversion rates and better business and ROI for your company. And what goes into that CRO process, well, that's the key word, right, is process. It's actually something that you can teach. It's repeatable. It's a process, and that can output decisions with repeatable predictability. And then a little bit of human intelligence, some tools, of which there are many today that help you do this much more effectively and cheaply, and just a little bit of magic. So in terms of CRO teams, how they're typically structured, talked about, is either a decentralized model or a centralized model. A centralized model is going to be much more common, and it's going to sit alone. It's going to be a CRO team or potentially a CRO specialist, and all decisions with regards to conversion rates and website optimization are going to run through that team. So they're going to set up the Hotjar polls, they're going to analyze Google Analytics, come up with hypotheses, set up the A/B tests, run them, analyze them, and then basically implement them and report on the results. Decentralized is more common in maybe SaaS companies where every team, such as paid, email, SEO, web strategy, all of those different teams are going to run their own experiments. They're going to collect their own data. So there's obviously pros and cons to both of these. The centralized, like I said, it's more common. There's a central team, revolves around one manager, supported by pooled resources. And typically you have more quality control with this method. Because you have a team of specialists, you're not going to question the results as often. You're not going to be, pulling from different data sources. Everything's going to be pretty homogeneous. But it's a bit slower. Obviously, if you have just one team doing this, you're going to be bottlenecked by their resources. Whereas a distributed function is often found in technical companies like SaaS companies, large development resources, many design resources. And the pros here are that you can move much faster and everybody takes ownership and autonomy over their goals and experimentation processes. But then you run into quality control issues. If you don't have a stable conversion rate optimization process and everybody's running on their own, some teams are running better tests, some teams are running worse tests, some teams are cherry picking data without even knowing it, some teams are actually really sophisticated, and those learnings should actually be applied across the organization if you want to maximize the results. Which brings me to my favorite model, the one that I believe is found in most mature organizations that continue down the path of investing in CRO and experimentation, which is the Center of Excellence. Center of Excellence, that team operates between kind of all teams, and it doesn't necessarily bottleneck and it doesn't contain all of the experimentation efforts. It may run some experiments, it may set up some data, but essentially its role is support, quality assurance, and enablement. So you can deliver more experiments on more teams. You can set up the appropriate resources and people. You can build the analytics and infrastructure for data pipelines. You make sure that you own the tools and technology that facilitates CRO. And you own the process, so it's more homogeneous and more predictable over time. This is common. I've seen it in many large organizations, and this is a presentation that HP did with Optimizely during OptiCon. And they talked about common structures of program design. And they did this on this 2x2 axis where, when you're centralized and you have one team or one person that's maybe just starting out, decentralized, and one person that's going to be the individual centralized team. And then up in that quadrant, when you have many teams running experiments and it's decentralized, what you need essentially to homogenize all that is the Center of Excellence. Again, this is another OptiCon presentation, but very, very similar topic. And this one's actually from IBM when they were scaling their team and their experiments from I think it was 12 up to hundreds or tens of thousands of experiments per year. And they started out thinking, all right, we don't need an experimentation hero. We need testing democracy. We need to allow everybody to run these tests. And then they kind of laddered up and they're like, oh, actually, this is pretty chaotic. We need clear job roles that hold people accountable for their testing. And then it's all right, we need clear metrics that people can share across different teams to ensure the success of our testing program. And finally, once things get so chaotic and so kind of technical and there's so many different teams running things that you need a Center of Excellence to maintain support for everyone and quality assurance for everyone running these tests. So, all right, here's the technical part, or the tactical part, I mean. This is actually what I think of in terms of how a CRO team can fit in terms of an operating system as opposed to running down that checklist of tactics. Two components of infrastructure that I think CRO teams should look after are technical functionality, aka tools and data, and attitudes and beliefs, essentially culture and evangelizing the program and making people understand what the hell experimentation is and CRO is. So I'll start here with the technology component because I think it's ostensibly quite a bit easier to grok and to implement, and the culture stuff's a little more messy. Anything on the human side tends to be a little bit more nuanced. So in terms of technical functionality, I want to break this down into 3 chunks. Your data operations, your experimentation capabilities, and then your knowledge sharing, which, by the way, is completely underrated in most companies, archiving and sharing those results that you get. So the first one is data operations. And again, we can further break this down into 4 different segments. Data collection, getting the data that you need. Data integration, making sure things are blended together so you get the full story and can actually make sense of the data. Data accessibility, just because you have the data doesn't necessarily mean everybody who needs it can get it in time. And then data trustworthiness. In fact, if you can't trust your data, everything is going to fall apart. Because even if you get wins and you can't really say if this is valid or not, you're not going to get trust from leadership, you're not going to get stakeholder buy-in, and other teams are going to doubt your results, and program crumbles quickly thereafter. So in terms of data collection, this is probably the easiest to understand just because there's a million tools out there, both on the qualitative and quantitative side. The most common, I'm sure everybody's aware of Google Analytics, basically a free website analytics tool that pretty much everyone is using or has used. And then you've got open source solutions like Snowplow, Adobe Adobe Analytics if you're more enterprise, and then product analytics solutions like Amplitude, Mixpanel, Heap. And then, of course, we have qualitative research tools as well, which I also factor into this and should not be underrated. Qualaroo being a Hotjar kind of a poll tool where you can put on-site polls and get feedback from anonymous visitors. And then one of my favorite recent ones is Winter, which is essentially user testing, but for copywriting messaging. And that was launched by by the CXL team, and I really like that one. I think you can get tons and tons of test ideas, and even if you don't have the traffic to test, which, by the way, is not critical for a CRO program. You don't actually need to run experiments in all cases if you're low sample sizes. Winter can give you really good qualitative feedback on your copywriting. And you've got the integration side. So say you're at a B2B company and you're working on Salesforce, you've got Marketo, you've got Intercom maybe for chatbots, you've got website analytics, and then you've got product analytics, and you want to stitch those things together to essentially track that person from the first touch point all the way down to hopefully long-term metrics like LTV, although that's difficult. But you're going to need a database, something like Snowflake, and then you're going to need some ETL and integration solutions. So something like Segment, Fivetrans Popular, and then of course my company, Workato, can do all of this as well. Data accessibility. So this is kind of a complicated graphic, but this is actually showcasing what is known as data cataloging. So as a company grows, as you start to track more things, as you start to trigger and implement more event tracking and goal tracking, it becomes very difficult to actually understand, what is this nomenclature? What does this name mean? What is this event? What is this report actually telling me? And additionally, different teams have different use cases for data. So it's like, where do I go to find this specific report or this data pool? And a data catalog is something that is reader friendly, and you can essentially go in and see, where this data lives, what this data means, and how can I access it. So it's sort of like a portal by which you can manage all of your data that you're tracking. But outside of that, there's actually really simple solutions nowadays for data accessibility. You no longer have to be a data scientist. I still recommend learning something like SQL, just because it's very functional and universal. But you can use tools like Amplitude and set up dashboards. You can use Google Analytics pretty easily. And even if those solutions aren't necessarily the easiest for everyone on the team, you can actually pipe those up through a tool like Google Data Studio or Tableau and build the reports necessary, the dashboards necessary, where people don't necessarily need to go in and query their data every time ad hoc. And then data trustworthiness. This could be a whole talk on its own, but essentially measure twice, cut once, trust but verify, as my friend Chris Mercer says, and never be too proud to audit your data and question your findings. I have never seen a data setup that's completely accurate or precise. There's almost always issues, especially when you first come into a company as a consultant or in-house. So one of the first things I would do is essentially poke holes and try to see, all right, are we tracking the things that we think we're tracking? Is the data telling us what we think it's telling us? And that's a very, very important point. And then on the other side of this is when you're running experiments, a lot of people just use the testing tool and the reports out of box, but I actually like to pull the raw data and pull it over to either an A/B test calculator like CXL has, which is completely free, or I actually love to have R or Excel readily available and to actually do the analysis on my own. The skeptic in me, I guess. All right, and then the next part, this is incredibly simple and everybody understands this one, I hope. If you want to run experiments, you essentially have to have a tool, in-house built or a third-party tool that allows you to randomize traffic, to send different experiences to different audiences if you're doing personalization, and to report on those things. And Convert is one of my favorite ones. They do the typical A/B testing, multivariate, some personalization as well. And then there's Google Optimize, which is really popular now because they've got a free offering as well as their enterprise offering. And then CustomFit, right? If you want to do personalization, that's obviously a part of optimization as well. And a tool like CustomFit can help you essentially design different experiences to deliver to different audiences, even enriching data and using identification services to populate different copy and dynamic pages, which is really powerful at scale. And then you've got knowledge sharing and program management, which I actually think is one of the most underrated pieces of the CRO team, and especially true when you're running as a center of excellence, because you're the storehouse of knowledge. You're the storehouse of information that can essentially proliferate to other teams so that they can make better decisions. And if you're not documenting things, then how are you going to tell people, what's going on? Let alone, like, if somebody new is hired to your team, how are they going to know what's done in the past? So I love Airtable. Airtable is what I use. I think it's incredibly powerful, and you can do tons of automations with it. There's also Confluence by Atlassian, which is essentially a knowledge-based software for internal kind of knowledge sharing. And then there's also dedicated solutions just for testing and CRO programs like Effective Experiments, which is a really clean and useful tool. All right. So we've got the technical stuff out of the way. Now let's go to the messy side, the human, the cultural, attitudes and beliefs. 3 components here. You could probably make this list longer, but I really look at it as evangelizing, educating, and supporting. So evangelizing, just because you understand conversion rate optimization doesn't mean everyone else does. Not everybody in your company is attending webinars like this. Not everybody's reading all the books, the blog posts, the courses. And especially this is true if you don't have an executive who's on your side and kind of understands the program. You're going to have a limited window and very limited air cover in that sense. So one easy way to evangelize is essentially spreading knowledge. And luckily there's tons of people writing about this stuff now. And it's a pretty hot topic even in business schools. So this book, The Innovator's Hypothesis, this author has written a ton of articles for HBR as well. Trustworthy Online Experiments is probably my favorite book in this genre by Ronnie Kohavi, who was at Airbnb and Microsoft and Amazon. And the book is kind of half technical and half organizational, but he's got tons and tons of understanding of how to do this stuff at massive scale organizations. And then Experimentation Matters, which is much more fundamental and kind of explains the business case to non-technical users. And this author as well, Stefan Tomke, has written a ton for HBR, and you can just forward this stuff around, share it with your Slack, and get people excited around the idea of experimentation in the first place. But all that said, this function of evangelizing is essentially being a cheerleader for experimentation and CRO itself. Nobody is going to do this for you. Essentially, you have to get people stoked. You have to get them amped, excited, and bought into the process. Otherwise, you're always going to be operating as kind of like the lone vigilante, the ninja, the person who's expected to go in and fix all this themselves, which is always going to be bottlenecked by your own resources and time. So anywhere you can cheerlead, cheerlead. Here are some ways that I like to do it, although this is basically limitless by your own creativity. But I think number one, critical, is having a regular experimentation review meeting. I do this once per week. We talk about experiments we've run that have concluded. We talk about what's what's ongoing and what kind of like the data trend is telling us, and then what is upcoming in the future, and if there's any bottlenecks there. You can also do this asynchronously in email newsletters, which I like to do once per month, and kind of talk about the same things and also add your learnings in. Very important. Slack channels, set up a separate Slack channel for your conversion rate optimization or experimentation team. Invite all stakeholders, and I love to automate notifications. So if you're using Airtable, you can actually set up, automations that say whenever somebody pulls a card over to the live column, it triggers a notification in Slack that says, this experiment is running, or this experiment has concluded, or this experiment has won. And those give you constant reminders and salience of the experimentation program and efforts going on. Sometimes what happens is this stuff becomes a little bit of a black box, a little bit opaque. And, the CRO team is just operating kind of in their own corner of the wilderness. This gives you much more company and organizational salience. I like to do intake forums and bots that can actually allow other teams to submit ideas, which, the more people who feel involved, the more powerful your program is going to be and the more kind of support you're going to have for your efforts. And then just in general, celebrate wins. If you get big wins and big learnings, shout them loudly, put them in the newsletter, email them to everyone who cares, put together case studies and write about those in your wiki. Essentially, just don't let a good win go to waste. And then I love gamification and competition too. I think if you can make people, incentivized to whatever your metric you're trying to gamify is, if it's, adding more ideas to the backlog, if it's, setting more experiments live, if it's, triggering more winning experiments per quarter. I think this stuff is incredibly powerful, and especially true when you have cross-functional teams doing experimentation. Now, education. This is a big issue. Again, it could be a whole separate topic and talk. But a couple things that I like to do in terms of educating people. One, first off, realize that not everybody's going to have the same skill levels, and that's totally okay. Some people are going to have different specialties. Not everybody's going to have a background in statistics and data science. Not everybody's going to have a background in design and kind of user interface design. But you can begin to carve out some education programs to bring people up to speed and homogenize the quality control of your program. So there is building out education programs internally or outsourcing them, writing wikis, guidelines, checklists, documentation everywhere. I love this one. And encouraging conferences and courses. I've found so much value over the years in going to conferences and just networking with kind of the top CRO people. if you get the chance, I would definitely say go and encourage your team to do so as well. So in terms of education, one of my favorite examples is Airbnb, and they formed this data university, which I can't remember for sure, but I think they have everyone go through, although it could be just certain teams. But essentially, they give you the foundations for quantitative and qualitative data analysis, which is not to be taken for granted. If you've worked with data for years, you may have kind of a back of the hand understanding and intuitive sense of how to work with data. Not everybody has that. So if you're going to be dealing with data, which CRO by nature does, you want everybody to kind of be up to speed on at least the foundations of, variance, standard deviations, time series comparisons, all that stuff. And you can actually outsource this stuff. So Airbnb has tons of resources to do this internally. I have encountered very, very few teams who do that. But luckily there's programs. I feel like I'm a billboard right now for CXL, which is my former company. I promise you I have no financial incentive right now, but I am biased. But I do think that me going through these programs and helping create some of them made me a much better and well-rounded marketer with kind of deep expertise in the topics that they teach about. They have CRO programs. They have specific programs for testing and statistics. They have programs for persuasive copywriting, user experience, research and design, all kinds of stuff. And you can kind of outsource this knowledge and upskilling. And then finally, there's the supporting role of the CRO. And this is something we don't think about often. But essentially, the CRO team can facilitate better decision-making and better certainty on all types of teams. This is something that I kind of came to the conclusion on when I saw this question posed in this Facebook group around CRO and analytics, which is, how is CRO considered in regards to marketing and or strategy? Is it considered as important as SEO, or is it an area that feels, it's still for larger shops? And this question I thought was just completely misguided, and that's actually what triggered a lot of this this talk that I put together in this article that I wrote on CRO being an operating system. I just think there's no comparison. CRO versus SEO is not an issue. I mean, CRO is a functional part of SEO, and SEO stuff can factor into conversion rate optimization efforts as well. The way I look at it, CRO is naturally embedded in all kinds of different organizations. So if you're operating solo and you have these silos set up, you're actually getting very minimal output from your program. I look at CRO as being innately connected to SEO, especially paid acquisition, user experience teams, and user experience design. If you have an operations and analytics team, that's obviously a very close relationship. But even towards email marketing, monetization, product, and all that stuff, it's just the results and the insights that you can get from CRO can spread to all these different teams to help them create better results too, which again is functionally the center of excellence model. So just a quick couple examples on how I've actually seen this work and play out. CRO and SEO is one of my favorite ones, obviously because I run a content and SEO agency and also work in CRO. So this is sort of my convergence, my bread and butter. But this is an article that somebody wrote about the convergence of CRO and SEO. It talks about how, this is a long paragraph, so don't feel pressured to read all of it, but he's talking about queries. And people who come in via search typically are coming by three types of user intent. Navigational, kind of looking for the name of a website or a place, trying to find something. Informational, so looking for information to try to learn something about something. And transactional, so they're looking for a product or service to purchase or to buy. And understanding these things actually affects conversion rate optimization. Why? Because a CRO really needs to understand the intent of the user who's landing on a page. If they understand why they're coming to the page and what they're hoping to look for, the optimizer, whoever's running the test or whoever's implementing new experiences, can determine what conversion action is most appropriate. What offer should we actually put in front of this person? What conversion action is most likely to elicit a conversion? And what's the best method, both in terms of like copywriting, design, the real estate on a page? What's the best method to persuade this user to convert? Something I like to do, this is a quick one. I like to plug a URL into Ahrefs. Ahrefs is an SEO tool that gives you all kinds of keyword data. So I put this blog post in that I wrote several years ago on why you should read 50 books a year. Something I used to do in college. Definitely don't do that anymore. But you can see all the keywords that this ranks for. And I can hone in on a couple of them that look interesting and pretty specific and long tail. There's a lot of anxiety, it seems like, around how many books should you read in a year? How many books can you read in a year? How many books to read in a year? Seems to be just a lot of like uncertainty around like what's appropriate and what's possible. So what I could do with this is I could actually create an offer or even a painted door test where I don't even create the ebook yet, but I could trigger a pop-up that says, how many books do the top entrepreneurs read in a year? And I could either do the research and figure out through interviews how many Elon Musk and Warren Buffett and everybody reads, or I could do my own research and, essentially reach out to 30 entrepreneurs and just aggregate the results and build like a quick ebook that would take a week to put together. And now I've got a direct conversion offer that is related directly to the keywords that people are coming into the website on. Another quick thing you can do to help the SEO or content team is to help them collect qualitative data to come up with new content ideas that are based on user pain points and reader pain points. So quick questions like, what topics would you like to see us write about next? Or even better, is there any information you couldn't find on this page after reading it? Then you get all kinds of results and qualitative feedback in terms of like, what are people actually struggling with? And those can be translated into topics that your content team or your knowledge-based team write about. CRO and paid acquisition is such a match made in heaven. These teams are often actually centered in the same organization. In fact, I work probably most closely with paid acquisition efforts at Workato, and similarly when I was at HubSpot, those teams were just intertwined. So an interesting concept here is you can sort of act as the mediator between two different teams here, right? If your PPC, if your paid team has all this data in terms of like what keywords are converting the highest, which ones have the highest cost per click, so essentially which ones are the most competitive and therefore the most desirable, and you can bring all that data over to your SEO team and be like, hey, we should actually create pages for these, so we can start to carve out some organic traffic, potentially lower our cost per acquisition by essentially getting free traffic, so to speak, from SEO. And you already know that they're converting well because the PPC data suggests that and because the paid team has already proved that out. Another thing, very obvious, is working with the paid team to optimize their landing pages. So if you are paying a certain amount of money for a certain amount of clicks and a certain amount of people convert, one lever you have to pull is actually just increasing the conversion rate, because then you're still paying for the same amount of clicks, and then you're basically making a more efficient paid acquisition engine. Then you can put more money back into the program, you can grow your company, you can grow your paid program, build more of a team, get a raise, get a promotion, all that good stuff. And do personalization on those paid pages too, which is incredibly effective. CRO and email marketing. This is underrated, not often looked at, but the data you have on your website actually tells quite a story in terms of what you can do with triggered emails and behavioral-based emails. So a common one is actually just triggering an event when somebody adds something to their cart, and then you can trigger an email that says, hey, you forgot this. That's an abandoned cart email, and the CRO team can work effectively with the email team to figure that stuff out, set up the appropriate analytics and events, and set that stuff up in your email tool. Another one is browse abandonment. So in this case, this is a Society 6. I looked at about 10 items, and they actually just saved those. I actually didn't save those to a list, and then they emailed me to remind me, hey, you actually were checking this stuff out. You want to come back? So you can do all sorts of stuff here. You can, trigger an event if somebody watched a video, and if you collect their email, then you can actually, send them more information based on that video that they seem to be interested in. You can essentially track events on the website and use messaging, SMS, email, anything to follow up and actually reach them when they're not on the website itself. And then just a core thing is like email teams are often dealing with tons and tons of data with regards to engagement and open rates, which kind of links people click on. And email teams can often figure this stuff out, and they are best suited to do so. But the CRO team can also help facilitate some of this stuff. So this is an email I got from my old boss at CXL. It says, our CRM data shows that you haven't been engaging with our emails, and you're not getting a lot of value from us. Here you go. Here's an extra course. Here's some value. You can get this for free. And of course, I'm re-engaged at that point. I'm clicking in, I'm getting the course, and it's such an obvious way to get me back in the loop. My point here is that CRO insights help everyone. If you unlock the silos and unleash the insights and information that you're gleaning from your program, you can really proliferate that to all different kinds of teams. After all, we're in the game of reducing uncertainty and improving business decisions at an aggregate and incremental level. So if you can make a slightly better decision every time you implement something, every time you change something on the website, every time you build a new landing page or an SEO page, or every time you set a new paid campaign live, that incremental value is going to add up and start to compound. And I actually did a little graph here in terms of the cost of decision. So when it's low, you may not need much certainty. If it's something that is obvious, if it's just fixing something, maybe you don't need a CRO team to tell you how to do this. But as decisions become more risky and more costly if you mess them up, the need for certainty increases. And CRO teams, through their various efforts on quantitative analysis and qualitative data and experimentation, of course, they can help you reduce uncertainty, but never eliminate it. There's no such thing as a completely certain decision. But I look at it visually like this. If a decision is low certainty and it's also low risk, just do it. What's the harm? If it's a high certainty and low risk decision, well, you got lucky. That's amazing. You can definitely just pull through and just launch it. The death zone is when it's low certainty and high risk. When you can't actually get certainty, that's very difficult because your business could be on the line. Whatever decision you make could make or break things. That's no bueno. You don't want to be there. But then if you move to this upper right quadrant, that's where I think CRO teams, especially on the center of excellence, thrives. When you can reach a high level of certainty through all these different processes and tools and data collection, and when the decision risk is high, that's when a CRO team really gets to work. So again, the way I look at this is businesses are collecting tons of data from all different sources, from Salesforce, from competitors, from SEO tools, just from anecdotes, from experience, from reading books, all kinds of different data and ideas. And the CRO's team is essentially, their job is essentially to unlock this, to remove the bottleneck, and to facilitate that data to the right teams in the right places, to unleash innovation, to unlock creativity, and to mitigate risk across the company, not just on their own team. And then we can all celebrate, not just the CRO team, but every team can help incrementally add value to their program. And then we can all build and grow our companies and get raises and promotions and celebrate. So that's why I believe CRO is best suited as an operating system and not a list of tactics that you apply to a landing page. And that's me. You can connect with me online. I write at alexburka.com quite a bit. My agency, if you're interested in content marketing services, is beomniscient.com. And then my Twitter is I am Alex Burkett, and I'm there quite a bit. So with that is my presentation.
That's great, Alex. I must say there are a lot of key takeaways for us and our audience here. We have some questions from audience, but before moving towards questions, we have two announcements. One from our co-founder and CEO, Ashwin Kumar, and one from we have Nanda here. He is from Freshworks. So we have Nanda, and he enables startups to scale with startup partnership and engagement at Freshworks. So I welcome Nanda, and I over it to our co-founder and CEO Ashwin to go for the announcements. Ashwin, please.
Yeah, hi all. So today, let me just quickly, let me know if you guys are seeing my screen.
Yes, Ashwin.
Perfect, yeah. So let me just quickly introduce what CustomFit is. Okay, and before that, thanks for a well-guided session by Alex. Okay, I mean it was very helpful. I guess even we are also taking notes. Okay, we are also like understanding how can we help from that thing. Thanks, Alex. Yeah, so basically CustomFit helps B2B companies to personalize their website for each visitor in order to convert 99% of the traffic which is bouncing today, right? So let me take you through a actual case study from one of our customer, ChargeBee. ChargeBee is harnessing power of personalization in order to get more customer attractions, in sense, the more conversions and engagement level on their website. For example, say that when a visitor lands onto their website for the very first time, the pitch of the pricing page, something goes like this. Find a plan that's right for you. And CTA they are pointing is contact sales. In B2B cases, right, the conversion won't happen on the very first visit itself. Now say that when the visitor is coming onto their website for the second time, now the pitch automatically changes as if, why can't you take the help of our expert time? Now, if you see here, the CTA changed to talk to our consultants, right? Now, say that the visitor is coming onto their website for the third time and still not convinced. At this stage, ChargeBee runs two different stories. For one segment of the audience, it showcases, is that one feature missing in that plan? That's what causing the friction in your buying decision, or you need help in calculating the exact price, right? On the third visit. And that too, if you see here, the CTA got changed accordingly. In first case, it's talk to our team. And in second case, it's talk to our pricing experts where they connect to the different teams in the backend. Right? This one use case itself drove them almost 1.3% and 3x jump in the leads. Likewise, they also have this demo page, requested demo page that has different sections like heading, description, logo, testimony. Now, say when a B2B visitor lands onto their page, if you see the complete pitch of that page, even their entire website now changes as if they are trying to showcase, the ChargeBee is meant for B2B businesses. And if you see here, the testimony is also coming from one of their B2B client. Likewise, say when a B2C customer visits their website, now the pitch of the website automatically changes as if, hey, ChargeBee is meant for B2C business. Right, and the correspondingly, the testimony also got changed from one of their B2C client. Likewise, their website pitch changes on the fly based on numerous factors like technology used or industry like from which the visitor is coming from. What is the size of that company, whether it's a startup, mid-size, enterprise clients, and all those things. Right. Let me quickly take you, how all this thing can be done with the CustomFit, which is a no-code platform. Whatever may be the website technology on which your website is built on, whether it's a Wix, Joomla, WordPress, anything, it just works out of box, and you no need to do any code change to get these kind of the experiences out in a matter of minutes, right? And other greatest factor of the CustomFit is it integrates with a bunch of the numerous third-party tools, like for example, Salesforce, HubSpot, okay, from like for example, the IP address intelligence systems like the Clearbait, Kickfire, and all the other social systems like LinkedIn, Facebook. From there, you can get the data, integrate the data, stitch the data, and based on that universal data, you can go and do a hyper personalization. You can add various different rules over there, right? So, and when we started CustomFit, the major thing what we figured out was, like as Alex told, you need to understand what is happening on the website, right? The moment a visitor lands on your website, CustomFit will help you out in understanding how they are walking on the website, what kind of the turns they are taking, what kind of twists they are undergoing, where are they seeing friction, where are they bouncing off from various different angles. Because unless you understand the visitors, you can't personalize it out, right? Very first thing, CustomFit helps you out in understanding what is happening on the website. Now, using all this data, you can go and personalize now precisely, right? As I told, it's a completely zero-code platform where you can go and create the experiences on the fly. Like, for example, say that I'm going to my experience engine, and let me just create an experience for you live. For example, say that, let me just create experience called as ABC, some name. So as simple as that, I can go and add what and all the pages I would like to personalize it out in a matter of minutes, not just, the landing page. You can also go and add bunch of the pages, and you can give a common segmenting rule telling that when this segment of the audience lands onto your website from various different channels, you can go and personalize them. Now, what I did, I just created experience and added the pages, right? Now, what I'm trying to do is I'm creating the behaviors. Behaviors is nothing but the audience segments, where you can go and like the behaviors can be based on the location, based on the region, based on any of your attributes in your CRM systems, like, stage of the visit, bunch of the things. Right? For example, let me create a behavior here. Right? Like that, I can go and create multiple behaviors like behavior B. Now, when you click on the visual editor, basically what actually happens is CustomFit opens that website in a visual editable way. Literally, you can go and change any element on the website without changing any single line, whether it's a text, image, page, a bunch of the things. Like for example, like I would like to call it as right. So like that, you can go, whether it's an image thing, you can directly go and change it from here. Say that you want to showcase only one segment, like say for one segment of the audience, you don't want to showcase the entire, the section itself. You can just go and play with the hiding of those things, changing the color, changing the call to action, And also you can go and visually attach the trackers, like say that I want to track among the people who are seeing this particular variant, I want to see how many people clicked on this particular button, say request to demo. I can go and visually track the thing, and also I can compare like how this behavior is or variant is faring when compared to the other variant, right? So those things can be done. And also CustomFit provides a variety of the ways to go and add on the fly banners and on all the fly pop-ups kind of thing with various integrations which you have with your CRM systems, and with different settings like when to showcase it out, like on play, like on entry, on exit, bunch of the things. In a nutshell, with CustomFit, you can go and personalize your website in a matter of minutes without any code changes over there. And more than that thing, you can go and understand what is happening on your website, right? Yeah, with that thing, I'm just handing over the stage to Ashwini.
Thanks, Ashwin, for this information. We are also coming up with website personalization templates. Each and every registrant and attendees will receive it through email after the session. We also have Nanda, and we have an exciting announcement from him. So let's welcome Nanda and just hear what exciting announcement he has. Hi, Nanda.
Hi, Ashwini. Hey, Alex and Ashwin. Thanks a lot for the wonderful session. I think some of the concepts was truly eye-opening in terms of understanding like how marketers and founders can look at conversion-rich optimization and also the experiments that they can run. And yeah, I think it was also great to see a demo from Ashwin as well. I think both of it resonated for all the audience here. I'll just not take a lot of time, but I'll quickly share my screen and walk through the some of the offerings. So is it possible for me to share my screen? Ashwini,
yes.
I don't see an option. Can you just like get me to? Where can I find the share screen option?
Is it? You can see over the top and middle section. Share screen.
Okay, got it. Sure. Yeah, thank you. All right. So yeah, quick background. I work for Freshworks. Freshworks, we have products across the customer engagement and employee engagement space. So I look after partnership and startup engagement at Freshworks. I have worked mostly in the B2B and B2C firms. I wore multiple hats, including sales, marketing, product, and customer success. At present, apart from Freshworks, I'm also building a community called the Product Folks. So a quick journey of Freshworks. We are a 10-year-old firm with more than 500 million funding. We've raised capital from some of the investors like Axel, Sequoia, Tiger Global, and Google. We serve more than 250,000 customers across 140 plus countries. Headquartered in San Mateo, California, currently valued at 3.5 billion. We have 7 SaaS products, both in the customer experience and employee engagement space. It also resonates with how marketers can actually leverage platforms like CRM and Freshdesk and Freshchat, Fresh Success for running some of the experiments that Alex was talking about. So I'll get into the maybe details of that, but what we have in store for the attendees from Freshworks for Startups is so we have started a paid forward initiative from Freshworks. It's a 1.5-year-old initiative where we support startups through access to multiple resources that the startups need early on. So we open up credits of up to $10,000 across all the products. With this, startups can go ahead and choose the products that we just saw and get their hands on the product because as a startup, we've seen a lot of barriers even when we were early on. So we try to limit those barriers and get the hands and foot in the platform so that they can get started and start looking at acquisition and running through experiments through the products. But we don't just limit there. We also support with additional resources and mentorship support. We do founder roundtables, founder connect sessions, different ways in which we connect and engage with the startups. We also conduct a large-scale, small-scale founder VC connect sessions so that startups can actually benefit and meet interesting investors and at the same time other ecosystem enablers which are necessary for the startups in a timely manner. We just saw multiple products, so I'll not get into the details of each of the product, but one interesting layer is on top of all of this is Freddy, AI and ML engine that sits on top of these products to give relevant nudges and recommendation engines that are necessary for the end users to actually start utilizing that and running these experiments. So we have partnered with more than 400 plus partners across VCs, accelerators, investors, and we support their portfolio through this initiative. We have enabled more than 5,000 plus startups in this journey, and we have a community of about 16,000 plus. So I think one offering for all the attendees who have attended this session is we open up the startup program benefits to all the attendees. So in case you're interested, feel free to reach out to me at either at startup@freshworks.com, or I can share my email address on the chat section. So you can just feel free to reach out to me, and we'd be happy to help you on board and get your hands on the product. That's it from my side. Glad to meet and network with every one of you. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll hand it over to Ashwini and Alex to take up the Q&A part. Thanks, Ashwini.
Thanks, Nanda, for this information. We have some questions for Alex. So, moving ahead with the Q&A section. First is from Varun. We are a single-page app website. So, SEO will work for us too?
I have no idea. I think a single-page website is probably the least important factor that you should consider. It's more so if you're in an industry where there's actually search volume and whether your particular website and resources can invest to the extent that you can beat out other competitors who are trying to rank for those keywords. So without knowing as much about the industry, I would say first try to map out what you would potentially write about, what the keywords are, how you would build those pages, how the resources, how much it would cost, and then try to calculate a break-even point. And I would say that's a better way to do it. We actually, if you search beomniscient.com, we have an article about organic content growth models. And if you do one of those, that can actually help you understand a lot more what the value could be.
Right. And one more question, we are from Varun again. We are running Google ads and Facebook ads, and we get a good amount of traffic on our website, but getting hard time in converting those users into registered users. So,
in that case,
what is your opinion?
I would also say that's a difficult one to answer without knowing much about the website, but my two hypotheses would be one, who you're targeting, so the pre-click side, right? Are you targeting the right audiences? Is it with the right offer, with the right language, all of that stuff? And I can't help you answer that, but I would say that's one piece of the puzzle. And then probably more pertinent is on the opposite side, which is after they click on that ad on Google or Facebook, what kind of value proposition do you have? What kind of positioning? What kind of offer? And I would say this is less conversion rate optimization stuff and much more, positioning and general product marketing. So I would recommend this book by April Dunford. It's called Obviously Awesome. It's an amazing book, and I think it'll help you really craft better messaging and better positioning. And then also you can use qualitative tools. So you don't necessarily need to run A/B tests, but you can use Winter, Qualaroo, 5-second test is another one to make sure people understand the offer on the page. So bifurcate it and look at both of those lenses because, it could be either of those. I'm not sure what the offer is and all that stuff.
And we have one more question from Manjunath. At what point of launching the startup we should think about implementing the CRO?
That's a really good question. The typical answer in CRO is it depends, but it really does. It's one of those things where I would build a growth model and map out how you're currently growing the business. How much traffic do you have from different channels like SEO and PPC and social and email and whatever else your acquisition channels are. What are your current conversion rates on those channels, and what's the value of those conversions once they come through? Map that out over however much time you have, whether it's a year or 2 years, however long you've been in business. Figure out what the trends are, and then figure out if you were to increase the conversion rates by X amount, and make it reasonable. Don't make it 12,000% increase like you see on some case studies, because that's literally just not going to happen. And then calculate how much value that would add to your business versus how much it would cost to hire a CRO agency or a CRO person or a team. And then you can make that decision. Because if you're too small and you're not bringing in enough traffic where the conversion rates are actually going to matter that much, I would actually put the resources on acquisition, on product, on things that are kind of foundational and are going to help you grow that base. Because CRO is really a game at the margins. Once you're Facebook, essentially when you're Facebook or Microsoft, even like a 0.5% win once a quarter could pay back for the whole program. But when you're a startup, when you're Series A or below, it's really, really difficult to make that ROI equation actually work in your favor unless you're getting like 80% wins, every test, which is just really, really rare. It only exists on blogs, unfortunately.
Yeah. And we have a request from Varun again. Can you just mention that book name again?
Oh, yes, yeah.
You mentioned it.
Obviously Awesome by
Obviously,
April
awesome.
Dunford. I can drop it in the comments too. One second.
Oh,
It's really good. And she speaks all the time. I would follow her on Twitter as well. Generally, I would just look into product marketing resources like that. Like there's different communities for it, and you can learn a lot just by following people on Twitter. I'm just going to drop this in the answer here. But yeah, April is fantastic with positioning and messaging stuff.
and we have one more question. What are your favorite tools for SEO?
Yeah, so I dropped a blog post that I wrote on that in the answer as well. But if I had to go with any, I would say Ahrefs. I use the tool literally every day. ClearScope, which is a on-page optimization tool that helps you rank. It helps you punch above your weight class essentially, because it reverse engineers what is currently ranking on Google and shows you what kind of keywords you should add or how long the article should be. It's kind of like a cheat code. And then for free tools, I like Keywords Everywhere, Answer the Public. Ahrefs has a couple free ones like Keywords Explorer, I think is free. But Ahrefs is definitely my favorite. But yeah, I dropped a whole list of my favorite tools there for SEO. Screaming Frog also for technical stuff.
Okay. And please share some tips for increasing conversion from social media campaign.
I have no idea. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Make your social media interesting and make the offer that follows from the click also interesting and relevant. Test different stuff. I don't know. It's hard to give generic advice on stuff like that.
Right. So we can stop here, but if we have some questions from attendee side, we can wait for 2 more minutes. Can you please drop some questions if you have in Q&A section? Till then, I would like to understand more about the people you follow, Alex, to update your knowledge, to keep you updated in this marketing world.
People I follow. That's a good one too.
Yeah.
I think it's snowballed over time, and it's not something I consciously thought about. But I guess like if I think about like whose insights I'm constantly reading now, it's definitely still a lot from Pep Laya from CXL. He's more talking about messaging, copywriting, positioning, strategy at this point, and less so on CRO. But his colleague Ben LeBay, who runs the agency side of their business, is putting tons of interesting stuff out on LinkedIn. And he's got a podcast and YouTube series as well in which he interviews heads of CRO and heads of experimentation. He's really good. David Mannheim has put a lot of good content out on LinkedIn as well, especially on program level stuff with CRO, which is what we talked about today. So, can you attribute like revenue forecasts from CRO? Like what's wrong with most prioritization models and how do you actually improve those? So he's got really interesting topics too. On the statistics side, I really like Georgi Georgiev, Ronnie Kohavi. Read his book and follow anything he's putting out. Nir Eyal, I'm not sure if he's talking about this stuff as much anymore, but if you want kind of the artful side or the persuasive side of CRO, he's got a lot of great content on how to create better feedback loops on habits and how to compel people to take action more often. Oh, and then one of my favorites is Rory Sutherland, who works at Ogilvy, and he's done a couple TED Talks. His book Alchemy is amazing, but he again talks more on the persuasive side of CRO, and talks about human irrationality and how simple tweaks that don't actually cost a lot of money can actually create massive results in terms of like how people take action.
Thanks, Alec, for sharing those names and sharing your knowledge with us today. And uh, that's it for the Q&A section. I think this was a really valuable information and session for us and even our audience. And with this, I would like to wrap up the session, wrap up our webinar. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Uh, Conversion rate optimization is not a tactic; it's a operating system. Thank you.
Thank you.